So once we have our pieces cut, we're going to want to take them and set them in our enclosure. And we're going to take note of where we want to put all of our parts. For these we have 2 different size vents we're going to use from our gaskets we picked up earlier. We have a hinge as well, and we have a handle. The convenient thing about these is that these tanks are so small, everything's relatively easy to get in a visual center without having to measure. This is only going to take 1 hinge most likely because of how small the enclosures are. And we're going to go ahead and just mark where we want everything at. These gaskets are going to be vents. So when we have everything essentially where we want it, what we're going to do is mark the inside of our vents. Once again, we still have the plastic covering our plexiglass, so we're not technically marking the glass, we're just marking the little stick-on plastic sheets. We're going to mark our hinge holes because we're actually going to drill and bolt these as opposed to gluing them or using the screws they give you. And what we're going to do now is take a look at the sheet from this side, and when we center our hinge, we're going to mark where the holes are on the back. And drill those out too. Now for this is what's kind of cool about this is a kind of a one-tool job, so you don't have to have a bunch of hole saws for a drill, a bunch of different drill bits. We do this whole thing with a Dremel, which is a very versatile tool. I've got a little bit nicer Dremel setup, so yours doesn't have to have, say, this clutch on it or any of that. And we're just going to use a cutting bit. Get that locked in really well. And then, because of how these gaskets work, we don't have to cut this hole super accurately. We just have to make sure we cut just past the red, because the gasket's going to cover up the rest and it's still going to look really good from the outside. So this enables us to be a little less, perfect and still have near perfect results. This is going to be kind of messy and kind of loud, so we're going to shut off the camera and do them all and then resume. Alright, so for the next step, after we've got all our holes cut and everything put together, we're going to create an abrasion on the plexiglass itself with a wire brush on our Dremel. The reason we do this is so that the silicone will actually stick to the plexiglass. Alright, now we are going to apply a screen to our holes with our gaskets using food grade silicone, which is why I'm wearing a mask, because the fumes from this stuff, while not toxic, are enough to put you on your ass for sure. I'm going to use a fine point. I'm just going to go through Put a thin bead around our hole. And then we're going to do the other one the opposite way, just so we can show you the difference between the two. And so we'll put a thin bead on here. This is the way I prefer to do it. You can do it however you want. Whatever works for you. Okay. So now we're going to take our screening and lay it across our holes here. We're going to push our gaskets down over. Making sure that we're lining them up and that we don't have any plastic hanging out on the inside. So once these are dry, we're simply going to take a knife and we're going to go around them and cut off the excess screen, and then we'll essentially be done with the outside of the enclosure. Alright, for the last step, what we're going to do is make our cork bark background, or backdrop, however you want to refer to it. And I like to lay it out beforehand and see what I'm going to do. And then we're going to take our tube of silicone, which this is the EMI food grade silicone. It's actually only like $3 a tube instead of like $6 a tube for the GE2. I have done a backdrop with GE2 and it took about a month to dry, so it's not exactly desirable. And make sure you cut your tip wide so you can disperse it. So we're going to apply this to the back of our cage, and we want to make sure we use enough but not so much that we have like a month drying time on this. You want to use a rubber glove so that you can smear it around and get it coated to everything on the back. And this stuff really has some fumes to it, so you definitely want to cover your face. Oh, even makes your eyes water pretty good. So now that we've got silicone in there, we just want to take our cork bark, press it into the silicone. If it's not sticking real well, we're actually going to squirt some silicone on the back. And so we can just apply it directly to the back of the cork bark if you have to. This will help seal it up so you can't have a roach or a cricket get back there or anything like that. You have to work fairly quickly with this stuff, but you do have a little bit of time. So. Alright, so now that our cork bark's in place, you just want to go ahead, get yourself a big scoop of substrate here. You just want to pour it in. Get another one. So we want to make sure that we can push it into all those nooks and crannies. You want to push it down really firm. Anywhere you've got silicone, you want to make sure you push it down. Push it down into the cracks between the cork bark and the side too. Alright, let that sit for a bit, and then we'll knock it off and we'll be good to go. So these are what they look like completed. We have them on a shelf and lit, and as you can see, I like a little bit of color in mine, so I like to use synthetic flowers. The only problem with live flowers or live plants is that if you're using Avix and they're webbing up on it, they have a tendency to kill pretty much everything. Also, the synthetic flowers won't mold, anything like that. I like to use magnets on my doors, and so that they stay nice and tight, but they're not hard to get open when you need to. I have yet to have a tea open one, and I had a Rosie that tried pretty much every day. So these are going to be housed with Avix at the time being, for the time being, and they should do well, because I mean these should easily take a spider up to 6 inches even potentially, which Avix don't get big like pokies do. A lot of the techniques in these tanks come from Rob's videos and stuff like that. I just do things a little bit different, and I recommend you experiment and try and find out what works well for you. And check out his channel too. I'm pretty sure once you start watching his videos, you'll be pretty well done with mine. So.